Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on Racing Grid with James and Max. I'm James.
I'm Max.
And today we're going to be talking about everything we learned from the Melbourne Grand Prix. What a race to kick us off for 2025. That has got to be one of the best races I've seen in a while. And it could be a contender for best race of 2025, couldn't it?
I really think it could. I mean, you had everything. You had the wet rain, you had Verstappen sandwiched between two McLarens, you had Williams, which was in my predictions from our last video, almost getting a podium. I mean, what more could you want from a race like this?
I know, it was absolutely fantastic, and the wet and dry contrast. You know, when I saw both McLarens go off at that one point, I thought, oh my goodness,
that was crazy.
It was such a shame for Piastri. I thought he'd done such a good job up until that point. To rescue points to finish in P10 still was very, very good. But yeah, gutted for him. Home race. He should have been at least P2.
And a great job he did get that car moving as well, because if there was a safety car and Lando had just pitted, Verstappen would have probably come out ahead.
It's true. So yeah, very good job by Piastri to keep it going. But yeah, lots that we learned from that race. And I think the first thing we learned from the Melbourne Grand Prix is that McLaren have a really, really fast race car.
They are so overpowered. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, the first part of the race, it looked like Verstappen was able to keep on the tail a bit of, of Piastri, of Norris, but then Piastri sort of like forced Verstappen into a mistake, or maybe not forced Verstappen into a mistake, but, kind of got the better of Verstappen, ended up being able to pass him. Verstappen went wide, and then they just pulled away and they built like a 15-second gap to Verstappen. They were like 2 seconds faster than some cars. Like, they were flying, both of them.
It was absolutely crazy, the pace they had. And the thing is, it happened before as well in Canada last year, where in these conditions where it's slightly dry, slightly wet, every other car apart from the McLaren really seemed to struggle. Verstappen was also about 15 seconds away from Norris in that race in Canada last year, and so it just seems to be the common theme of that happening when it's those race conditions.
Yes, but this year I don't think it's based on that pre-season test. I don't think it's as much a surprise, but it's just the fact that they were so strong, and I think it is going to be a story of 2025 that McLaren are going to be the team to beat. They're going to take a lot of beating, and both Norris and Piastri, they look like title contenders, don't they? Both of them.
They do, and I guess some other news there in terms of that team having two title contenders is Red Bull. I've been seeing a lot of news post Australian Grand Prix of people saying, bring back Sergio Perez. Why did you let go of Sergio Perez? Because Liam Lawson did not seem to have the best race this weekend, did he? In comparison,
yeah, he did not, and that moves us on to another thing we learned is that the curse of the second Red Bull seat continues. I mean, my goodness me, Liam Lawson had the worst possible weekend to kick off his Red Bull career, didn't he? I mean, free practice 3, I think he had issues with the car, so he couldn't get out. That's not his fault. But practice 1 and 2, he was comfortable but slow, it looked like, and then he gets to qualifying out in Q1, and then in the race just nowhere, and then ends up spinning out. Oof, one to forget.
I know, absolutely. And the interesting thing is he could not get past the Haas drivers. Like, aside from the fact that he spun out, which was really unfortunate, throughout the whole race he was in between Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon for the vast majority of it, which is impressive for a Haas driver to be able to keep a Red Bull behind. Or is it that Liam Lawson just getting used to that car and it is really more geared up towards Max Verstappen? We'll find out, I guess.
I mean, it's I think it's quite clear that the Red Bull has favoured Verstappen. Verstappen has enjoyed driving that car more than his teammates. That's 100% a fact. But yeah, the second seat curse continues, and Lawson's going to have a really good China race to make everyone forget about Australia, but I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be really, really difficult. There's just something about that car that Verstappen is able to get the best out of, even when it's really not the best, and, you know, teammates just can't.
Not only that, but in China, they're going to have to try and forget about the fact that Yuki Tsunoda wiped the floor with Liam Lawson in that race. I mean, he was tremendous during the Australian Grand Prix. Unfortunately, the strategy just didn't work for him. He stayed out too long on those medium tyres and had to box and finished outside the points. But up until that point, he was driving a phenomenal race.
He was, wasn't he? He was. And, he qualified P5, didn't he? So he had a wonderful race. Yeah. Did Yuki Tsunoda. He did a really, really good job. So fair play to him. It's a shame that it sort of just didn't work out in the end with the wet weather mix, the strategy, but to be in P5 and to, you know, basically hold position for the majority of the race, I think he did a good job. But let's move on to our next talking point, and that is Williams.
Yes, and you know my thoughts on Williams and Carlos Sainz, my hands down favourite driver on the grid this year. We all know about it. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, he wasn't the driver to take success for Williams. Alex Albon ended up finishing P4, P5, P4, P5 because Antonelli's now had that P4 reinstated. So Albon did finish P5, but even still, 10 points for Williams in their first race of the season. It's unbelievable.
It's fantastic. I'm so impressed. You know, the way Alex Albon was able to hold off Hamilton in for the majority of the race, really. You know, Hamilton was stuck in P8 trying to get past, wasn't he? But Albon just, you know, I think you said something about in another video about how, you know, if Williams, you know, can have this speed and also retain their straight line speed, then, you know, they could be a really difficult team, and that's exactly what happened. They've clearly still got the straight line speed, and Hamilton was really struggling to get past Albon. Albon did a great job, and then to end P5, I think Williams can be really, really proud of what they've achieved. It's a shame about Carlos. I know he's your favourite driver, and seeing him spin off, that must have been heartbreaking for you.
It was just it was too soon, James. But what could have been, because if Carlos Sainz had have stayed in that race, I reckon Williams could have had two cars, probably 5th and maybe 7th or 8th. I feel like Carlos Sainz would have finished higher than Lance Stroll with the win.
I agree. I think it was just like a sudden torque surge or something that he had, didn't he? That it was weird. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a debut weekend to forget. But James Vowles, you know, he's been very, you know, on it with Carlos about how, you know, he was so helpful as like another strategist during the race, and, you know, that's clearly helped Albon because, you know, he went onto the tyres at the right time, and it's really helped him secure a good position. And Williams, like, they have a really good car, you know, based on quality as well. You know, both cars in the top 10. So
what's really nice about this is that they have the racing's got a lot closer. I mean, put McLaren and Red Bull aside for once, because they were so far ahead of the rest of the competition, but everyone from 4th downwards, you don't just have the Mercedes and the Ferraris and, you know, the other teams fighting at the back. You've got the Williams in the mix, the Alpines in the mix, the Aston Martins. They're all kind of in that points finishing position, and I feel like if that continues, it's going to be a phenomenal season. It is going to be a phenomenal season for them. I can see it. I can see Williams having a really, really good year, and that, I'm sure that's music to your ears. It is. Yeah, but I still believe they've got P5 in the constructors coming their way this year. I think it's a possibility based off that performance. It's 100% a possibility. Now, the next thing that we learned was, well, it was a mix, really. We're going to talk about the rookies. Now, I think the star rookie of this weekend was Kimi Antonelli. You know, P16 to P4. His first ever Grand Prix. Wow. That's you know, hats off, fair play. That, you know, that is unbelievable. And those overtakes that he made on Hülkenberg and Stroll in the second to last corner, where no one else would have dared to make that move in the wet, he's got all the confidence of a driver like Max Verstappen. I mean, yes, did he get lucky with the safety cars? Of course, because that propelled him into the correct positions. But he drove a really good race up until that point to get to that stage.
He did.
What I will say is, he's the best rookie because all the other rookies pretty much crashed out, apart from Ollie Behrman and Bortoletto.
Yeah, well, look, I still think at the end of the day, to go from P16 to P4 is remarkable in any situation. So, as I say, fair play to him. But yeah, you look at the other rookies, and I felt so sorry for Rizak Hadjar. I felt so sorry for him going. I think he was just tapped the throttle, and he had this sudden surge of acceleration, and he's out on the formation lap. That I can't imagine how he must have been feeling after that. I think he was crying after it. I can't imagine it. It must have been so difficult. I felt so sorry for him, and it's not how his debut weekend would have wanted to go. And but yeah, we saw other rookies go out as well. Jack Doohan. Was it the first lap? He had it was like a sudden torque surge, and off he went. He seemed to put down the throttle quite progressively, but then the car just was just sudden surge of acceleration, and the car was gone. And but then again, you had drivers like Carlos and Fernando Alonso suffer these situations. So can't be too harsh on the rookies. But
you've also got to remember that it's their first time driving in the wet. They haven't had any practice in testing in Australia. There's never been rain. So, you put them in a situation where there's suddenly rain in a car that's so much more powerful than a Formula 2 car. There's a highly likely chance that could be a possibility.
Exactly. So I definitely think it's pretty much like a learning experience for them, I would say. I think they've got a lot to learn going forward from that. I think the one driver who can walk away with their heads really held high is Antonelli. He's obviously still got a lot to learn, but he can be the happiest of the rookies. But yeah, I think for the others, this is going to be a huge learning experience for them. But let's move on to I don't want to actually introduce it, to be honest with you. Let's talk about Ferrari.
Let's talk about Ferrari.
You lead this one. I don't really want to.
I'll take this one. Your prediction was right. My prediction was wrong. I remember in our last video, I predicted that Leclerc was going to be the race winner. He was not, and you predicted Lando Norris. So congratulations, well done for that. I don't think they did too badly. They haven't had the pace all weekend. They were 4 tenths behind the McLarens in qualifying. They were behind the Mercedes. Obviously, it's unfortunate that Hamilton couldn't get past Alex Albon. Was that because he's getting used to driving the Ferrari, or was it because Alex Albon drove a phenomenal defensive drive? I'm not sure right now, but he was getting a lot of whispers in his ear from the Ferrari team, wasn't he? During the race?
There was a lot of leave me to it, please. They're going to have a chat before China about communication and what's what there. But oh my goodness, Ferrari. They're my favourite team. I've supported them for so long, and I will love them unconditionally. But oh my goodness, that was a hard watch this morning. That was a really, really, really hard watch for me, just to see, Leclerc and Hamilton, just not have the pace at all. And then strategy. Of course, strategy affected them. The rain was coming down hard. Everyone goes in for intermediate tyres. Ferrari stay out too long and lose position. It's honestly, I hate it. I want Ferrari to do well. I want them to succeed, but it's just all the time there are issues. But I think take away from the strategy and all that stuff, the car just doesn't look that good, does it? It's just well off the others. I mean, they look good in free practice too, and free practice 1. But oh my God, you get to qualifying and what were they, P7 and P8? So the quali pace wasn't there, and I was thinking, have they set up for a wet race more than others? Maybe. and then we get to the wet race. Well, they were nowhere. You know, they struggled. You know, I know Charles Leclerc got a really good start into P5, but he just couldn't do it. He couldn't make an impression on Mercedes after that. And Hamilton, you know, as we said earlier, was stuck behind Albon. You know, he seemed to struggle a bit. And yeah, it just wasn't the best day for Ferrari.
They're kind of just in no man's land at the moment. They're not really fighting or defending against anyone. The cars in front of them, like the Mercedes and the Red Bull and the McLaren, are faster, and the ones behind them just can't really catch them. So it's going to be very interesting in China, where it might be hopefully a fully dry race. It's a track circuit rather than a street circuit. How Ferrari will do on that, but don't be down, James.
I am down. I was not happy watching the Grand Prix this morning, I have to say. But look, it is what it is with that one. And I think what lends itself to this point is Hamilton, because you know this was Hamilton went to Ferrari as to have a refreshed start from Mercedes. And it's completely fair enough that he's still learning the Ferrari car. You know, he's got to learn the power output. He's got to learn the handling of the car. That's all completely fair enough. But he just didn't look comfortable at all in that race. Like, he seemed to be struggling. And I think one thing that shocked me, really, was how he let his teammate, Charles Leclerc, go around the outside of him in turn one. And Oscar Piastri did the same thing on the last lap. I couldn't believe it. I remember China 2018 as an example, when Hamilton was on worn hard tyres. I think it was that. Verstappen was on new medium tyres. A safety car bunched them all up, and Verstappen, was all over Hamilton. And he tried to go around the outside of Hamilton, and Hamilton made sure that Verstappen did not go around the outside of him. And Verstappen paid the price because he ended up off the track and lost positions. Yes. But he's just letting drivers go around the outside of him like he's not even there. I just don't get it.
It's the first race of the season. No one wants to have a collision because everyone just wants to secure the points that they need. I think once the season progresses and people know what leeway they have between different positions in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, I think they'll start taking more and more risks. But you've got to obviously remember that the points positions, if as soon as you crash out, you could be getting 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 points, and then all of a sudden it just goes to 0, like what happened with Oscar Piastri. He was about to get 18 points, and all of a sudden, just like that, 0 points. He obviously made his way back in.
He overtook Hamilton at the end, so he got that 1 point. But
they've got to be careful when these.
You do have to be. You're right. You're absolutely right. You do have to be careful in these situations, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I was just shocked about how he just let it happen. So yeah, I definitely think. Sorry.
What are your thoughts on the fastest lap being taken away?
Fastest lap.
Point for fastest lap.
I haven't really had much thoughts about this one. I think it takes away a bit of the excitement element in a way, because drivers would pit to get that fastest lap. And it'd be like, okay, who's going to do what here? And it could be crucial because you go back to 2021, for example, and Hamilton and Verstappen are level on points. 1 point could make all the difference in the world. So I think it had an element to it, but we'll see throughout the season if it affects things. I didn't really miss it watching the Australian Grand Prix, though, to be honest.
Nice. No, I mean, with how exciting it was, that was the last thing everybody's mind. I thought that Alex Albon should have got the driver of the day, though. I know Lando Norris drove a great race, but Alex Albon to finish where he finished in a Williams, I feel like he deserved.
I think it should have been Kimi Antonelli.
You think Antonelli?
Yeah, well, P16 to P4. I think that's it. But Alex Albon's a completely fair recommendation for it. I think he drove a fantastic race. But yeah, I just probably would go for Antonelli on this occasion. But those are the things we've learned from the Australian Grand Prix. What do you think, and what did you think about that race? Let us know in the comments below. And until the next video, take care. Bye.
Bye.